It's a pleasure talking to you this evening. On behalf of the Agile Testing Alliance, I would like to welcome you to this interview. Uh,
Thanks.
so, I would just like to know from you your thoughts on testing and what's your inspiration about testing.
Again, the testing terms and the testers. So I've always seen that testers are being like a last being. So in the starting of my career, I was always seeing that testers were always last. They come in the picture always at last. So why I have selected a testing as my career, it's like I don't want the testers to be at the last. I want them to be at a very first step, a day one from the inception, or day one from the where we interact with a client or where we get any new features. So a role of a QA should not be someone is pushing some code and they are just testing. It should be more about they are providing our inputs, they are giving their thought process, what needs to be there from a business perspective, what values it is there, and from even from the technical perspective. So because they have a broader picture, they don't think only in the core of a functionality that this is what I'm implementing. If I'm implementing one services, I will just implement the functionality, but who will take care of performance? Who will take care of security? What are the loopholes? So you should be a gatekeeper. You should wear a different hats to provide those inputs to the entirety. So that's how I take a role of a QA.
Okay, and so what is your inspiration behind being a QA or being a tester?
If you'll take call me about the inspiration, it's more about, again, I'm repeating the same thing. Not only doing a single streamline of a work, at time you have to wear a multiple hats in a same sprint, in a same project, where you have to play a role of iteration manager, where you need to think of a security, you need to think of performance, meanwhile you need to manage your how you are going to test your stories, you need to speak to developers, you need to communicate to a business, you need to also keep in a mind the timelines, what we are doing, which kind of a story we are playing. So this is what inspires me. And the challenge is when you wear a multiple hats, you are not closely just working isolated. So it gives you a different personality altogether. That's what I have figured it out in my 5 to 6 years of careers. That when you interact with the different people, it's not only about I won't be thinking the product from my perspective that okay, this is the way it should be. How the business thinks, what are the challenges from the developer ends, what the scrum master thinks, from where the money is flowing all around. If we develop this feature or if we don't, if we skip this feature, what will, it's more about how, what is the return of those investments. You are putting a number of people in a team and what you are returning out of it. Business always thinks in that. Developer thinks of, if I'm working on this tech stack, this is not I won't like to work on Silverlight. Why can't I refactor? Why can't we move it to different technology? Then a QA's perspective also, from me, why should I always be testing a API? Why should I not test close to a business where the APIs are already been driven? It should not be like me just doing a beta tester or a beta user. Why should I not be knowing more coupled to the services? Very closely testing. So those are the different aspects of those.
Excellent. So you mentioned about you being doing testing for 5 to 6 years now. So how have you seen testing evolve from the time you started testing to now? What has been the
Uh,
change that you see?
Testing with respect to evolution, I would say it's more about, I've seen the QTP word, I've seen the VB scripting, and then Java scripting, and the role of a QA. Mostly, what I've seen in the organization, it's more about they last manual QA, automation QA, performance QA, and a security QA. But evolving down the line, being as a thought worker, what I've seen, if you are a QA, you have only one religion: you are a QA. So it's not about that you should be specific to performance or security. At time comes, you have to do everything. You should have a breadth of knowledge. Apart from that, you should have a depth of your expertise. But in the organization or in the industry, this culture, what manual QA, performance QA, automation QA, from the down the line of 10 years, what I would want to see, and what I even in the communities and discussions we are always being, that if you are a QA, you should be able to handle everything, each and everything, whatever comes to your product. So this
Right.
is how I would like to see as a QA role down the line of 10 years. There should no be openings, there should not be any openings and requirements of performance or a security QA. It should always be, we require a QA.
Okay.
That's
That
all.
was going to be my next question, actually, as to how do you see testing happening in the next 5 years or 10 years? And so you've given the answer saying that, okay, you should be focused and it should be largely called as a QA or a testing person and no specific role such as a performance or a security QA.
Yeah,
Is that right? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So one thing that I wanted to understand from you is, you know, 5 years ago when you started your career, uh, what, I mean, how did you begin your journey? Did you get opportunities to talk to people, to participate in conferences, to listen to seminars? How was it back then?
So back then, honestly speaking, I haven't got a chance to speak to people in conferences. It was only close to what organization was there, but I was figuring it out something that there would be some conferences and something would have been going all around. So that was the step for me to see whether the conferences are there or not. But starting 2 years of a career, it was more focused on just getting the understanding the things, getting the things how it evolves, seeing the people around that what they are learn and getting the learnings from them. And after 2 years only, I thought of having those so that thought process for me came after 2 years of my career, that if I'm learning something, I should give back to community.
You make a very good
and
point,
and
and you make a very good point, Agile Testing Alliance also has a similar philosophy. It's about giving back to the community, and we feel that meetups, conferences are a good way of doing that. I think it creates a platform where you can talk to a lot of people, learn, and share.
yeah, agreed.
Right. So, tell us what are your thoughts on the entire global testing retreat?
So global testing retreat, it's more about it's like again I will come in, it's a global village. You get to know the people all around. It may be that you are so busy in your work, in your day-to-day work, that you won't even get at times you won't even get a time to read blogs. But when you go and participate for these meetups, you have to prepare. It's like even if you don't get time, or if you can't make excuses first of all, and you have to go in meetups, you have to prepare for the meetups, you interact with the people, they share their ideas, you share your ideas, you share your domain experience, they share your, and once you come back from the meetup, again the thought process is where I am, what, whether I'm doing it right, whether I'm on what more I can get it off, or is it that I'm so concise to my domain itself that I'm not thinking of in the other domain's perspective, whether I should think of in a different project. It's not only about the project or a product testing, whether I should be thinking of something different in altogether. uh, it should not be domain specific or a tech stack specific. So those kind of a process, and moreover you get to meet awesome QAs, and then the networking that helps a lot, even when down the line of a career, if you want to switch or if you want to try something new, you have a point of contacts.
Okay, that is nice to hear. What are you planning to talk about? Can you tell us a little bit about the proposals that you have submitted for GTR 2016?
So the proposal which I submitted is mostly about testing in a microservices architecture. So I'll give you so here we are in a legacy architecture. It's a retail application where we were using the IBM WCS part of it. It was all the monolithic architecture where all the services were coupled. Now we are breaking it down into smaller services so that it can be easily deployed and testable. So my talk will be around how we started moving from a monolithic to microservices architecture. What were the QA's role at that point of time when these design and the uh, architecture changes were happening, and how we started implementing our API framework testing. What were the challenges, and It's being a year and we are in a position where we have deployed it to production. I would like to give some tips and tricks when you test a API, when you interact with a business, when you have to interact with the consumers. How can you make your APIs so robust that it can be consumed by n number of consumer, irrespective of making a big bang changes? Consumers should, your API should be designed in that format that consumers should be able to just tweak that, and whatever they want to display in their UI, they should be able to do that.
Ex-
So those design thought process of designing the APIs.
Excellent. That's great to hear. You spoke about a lot of things. Um, what are your thoughts about these these buzzwords that we hear a lot of agile, we hear a lot about DevOps these days, we are hearing a lot about Internet of Things and so on and so forth. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you think the testers should prepare in this era of such heavy big words?
So first of all, I would like to say there is no big words and there is no best practices. It's
Okay.
all about in which context you are and what you want to go ahead in that context. Some practices might be a best practices and it would work for one product, but given a constraints in the other product, it won't work. So you need to think in those direction. You need to put your thoughts that what is best in this context, in this situation, and in this scenario. What can you do? It's more about best at the moment. Think of first think of best at the moment, then think of your three months, whatever you have planned your timeline.
Okay, so how do you think testers should get ready to uh, test in the IoT world or in the DevOps world? Do you see their role changing a lot?
Definitely, as I mentioned in the starting only, it's not only you would have given that one feature that tests the login functionality. Tester QA has to wear. If you are not wearing a multiple heads, it's something that you are not doing good with you. Down the line, 1 year, 2 year, you can just make it away for with you for a year or two. But down the line, you have to wear a multiple hats. You have to get involved in how the chef deployment or the puppet deployment scripts are going to happen. And what, even in the IoT world, how will you test? How will you, if you are testing a product, if you have to test a microwave or a rotimatic, how will you test? Or if you need to test any medical devices, and if you need to think of those directions within a limited time span, limited resource, how what can you do? So if you need to start putting your thoughts, you need to start slowly building, not only doing a QA job, you need to be a BA, you need to be an IPM, and slowly you start moving into wearing a multiple hats. It's more about QA, product owner. So it's like you'd start taking a baby step. Without taking a baby step, you won't get.
So, if I understand correctly, there would not be anything such specific as a manual tester or anything like that.
Yeah, there
You
should.
need to be capable of writing code as well.
Yeah, that you should be capable of writing code as well, and meanwhile you should understand the limitation of automation also.
Hmm.
Sometimes whatever the manual things brings on the table, automation may not bring, because it's more about you are driving the automation, you are telling to do this specific way, but what the doing a manual testing also helps. So it's not about 100% automation or 99% automation. Should always be thinking why it can't be automatable and what we are getting best out of it. If I'm not automating this, what time I'm saving of it while doing it manually, or whether I'm not saving a time, or it is having a lots of regression impact, whether I can automate it or not.
Right, right. You've made some excellent points there. Uh, so, what would be your advice to young budding testers or testers who have started their career just now?
First of all, don't think that testing is not as good as development. This is the very buzz thing that people have, that in I don't know why that complexity or why it's there in and around. Oh, QA, oh, tester. Don't think of that. Always keep reading. Down the line of a year, you will figure it out what your interest lies on. As you might be in the UI, you so then figure out your depth. Figure out your depth, work on your depth, but meanwhile, keep exploring your breadth of knowledge.
Excellent. I mean,
Just these, this,
that's a great message. I think that explains a lot. You very rightly said about keep knowing your depth and keep measuring it, and also keep on exploring your breadth. I
yeah.
think multidimensional growth is essential. You've made some excellent points and suggestions there. So, what are your specific sort of expectations from GTR 2016? Are you looking to uh, learn something specific out there?
Specific, I would like to see the change what is happening around the industry. Are
Mhm.
we still with Selenium or QTP, or have we moved on from that? Are we, or even if we are following an agile, at what, in which project, in, or if we are transforming into an agile? I would like to see those kind of aspects, that if you are transfer, if you are in that transition mode, what are your challenges, how you are facing it, and how can other people or other community can help you drive those aspects. That's something. And moreover, about the technology aspects, that uh, what are the new things QAs are exploring, whether they are working for the APIs testing or how they are testing the APIs, those kind of aspects. Well, how closely you are testing to the code. It should not be beneath, after 3 layers you are testing your code. So I would like to see whether our industry has been moved to that test pyramid patterns or not. Whether you are writing a test, then you're thinking of the test pyramids. Or so those kind of things. When you communicate to the people, when you see the presentation, what are the thought process, and how can I help them thinking in those direction, a small direction, whether they it would be helpful to them.
Great, great, great. I think you've summed it up really well. I think that's what GTR 2016 is going to be about, and we are obviously looking at sharing a lot of knowledge, sharing a lot of information, learning from each other, and basically, you know, make sure that the whole world becomes a better place with testers, making sure that the products that reach the end customer are of topmost quality. So, on behalf of Agile Testing Alliance, I would like to thank you once again for giving your valuable time. I know that you are really busy, but thank you so much for finding some time for us. And we would like to keep talking to you to keep you posted on how things move forward. uh, like I mentioned, if it'll be nice if you could share your blog page details and your Twitter handle as well, so that
Sure.
we can help propagate all the good things that you've been doing in the industry. uh, so thank you so much,
Thanks,
Varuna.
Brijesh. Thank you.
It was
Nice
really nice
talking to
talking
you.
to you, and you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.